And a good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We're grateful to have everybody with us tonight. And we are always, without exception, grateful to have this wonderful gentleman with us. Jeemes Akers on the phone. I almost said Brad Johnson, then I'd have had to apologize to Johnson for that later. But I had to throw that in. It's good to see my buddy on the phone tonight. Good to see you, buddy. How you been doing?
I've been doing fine, Chris. How about you?
I've been busy, but doing well. It's always a pleasure to have you on, man. I don't think I've ever done a show with you. We don't have a great conversation. We've made you sort of part of our weekly lineup, and sometimes we have you on more than once because the world goes crazy on us, and we always like to get your thoughts on things, and it's been such a pleasure to have you. Hey, I wanted to talk to you. A lot's happened since I've last talked to you last week. This horrendous terrorist attack that took place in Colorado over the weekend. This Egyptian national that tried to blowtorch several people. 12 people are injured. It was 8 as of last night. The injury number went up a little bit today. And thank God no deaths, but it could have been worse, Jeemes. But it's always the fallout from these things, to me, that's worse. And some of the lying in the media about it, it seems like they can't call him a terrorist. They can't call him an Egyptian. Come to find out today, his whole family is here illegally. And Kristi Noem of the Department of Homeland Security said that they're going to deport the wife and the daughter. But I'm just curious how you view all this, and this jihadist movement, brother. It's here, and you said something last week that was so profound, and I repeated it several times on the radio this week and last, that the West just does not understand this dance in the Middle East, and I don't think we understand our enemy and the depth that they go to. But this spirit or whatever is on people, it's infested the country, brother, and it's dangerous. Dangerous time to be a Jew. It's dangerous time to be American.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think there's much I can add to just, it just emphasizes more every day. One of these incidents come up, and it seems like Jews are always the target. And can you imagine the Jewish community in this country? Right now they're just they're just targets, and they feel like targets, and that's an awful feeling. And the mainstream media is just bends over backward in my view, to accommodate this type of activity, and it is just crazy. It's the spirit of lawlessness is what it is, and plus I think now this is going to offend maybe some of your listeners, but I think there's also a demonic element to it, and we haven't. Nobody thinks we've seen the last of this.
I don't think we have either, James. I think that it was just. I think it's going to get worse. And I was sharing this radio show yesterday that right now in America, do you realize it's more dangerous for Jews in America right now than it probably is in some Middle Eastern countries? I'm not saying all of them, because there's some I wouldn't want to be a Jew, but there are some countries, moderate like Jordan, that you can be Jewish and they're not going to overtly go after you. It's a shame that our country has reached this level. And I don't know where to lay the blame totally. I do lay the blame a little bit on the pulpit, some of this replacement theology, a lot of these voices that are calling, the Jews evil, and basically the rhetoric of the 1930s is coming from spiritual voices. But I don't know even where it started. I mean, these kids, I know people want to say it's on the campuses. Yeah, it's on the campuses, but these kids didn't wake up with this knowledge, Jeemes, to hate Jews. They've got this from somewhere. And I think that's where we got to figure out here in America. Look, I understand what they're doing in the Middle East. They're teaching these kids from the cradle to the grave that Israel is evil and they need to be destroyed. That's what Hamas does. That's what the jihadists do to their kids, the Palestinians. But we're not talking the Palestinian territory here, buddy. We're talking the good old U.S. of A. And it just makes you wonder where this stuff has come from.
Yeah.
Other than demonic.
And it is not a problem that's isolated to the United States and the Western world. Europe is looking at these same sorts of problems.
That's true.
And the Jewish minorities in France, UK, Germany, right now they're all under pressure, and they're all walking around with targets on their back. And and you have mainstream media leftist propaganda that says these people are part of an oppressive class. It's neo-Marxism right down the line. These people are part of an oppressive class. Therefore, anything you do to target them is justified. And that garbage has got to go.
And I guess that would be my question to you. How do you combat this? I mean, because you're right, it does have to go. But I can guarantee you, if I open the chat up right now, I guarantee you the first question would be how do we get rid of this garbage, this talk and this anti-Semitism? But it's a spiritual matter. I mean, this is something that goes deep in the soul of people. You know, this ain't just good old Jew talk, hate talk on the playground. This has gotten deeply rooted in our society and our psyche, bro. It's ugly to me. It is ugly. The time we're living in right now.
Yeah, it's ugly because it's reinforced by other ideologies. This is not simply a case and we opened the spigot to all of these people from the Middle East to come in, and nobody's keeping book on them, and that's bad enough. But what I am saying is that thinking, that anti-Semitic thinking, is reinforced now by this whole notion, this whole leftist/Marxist notion that you divide people up into classes that are oppressors and those that have been oppressed. And you can justify anything that members of that class of the oppressed do because it's legitimate action against the oppressors. And because of what has happened in Gaza in recent months and what has happened in the Middle East, all Jews are portrayed as part of this oppressor class. And this whole line of thinking has been deeply entrenched in educational institutions, colleges and universities for years. And ordinarily you would say, in response to your question, well, we need to change our education and revise how we're teaching kids in terms of them coping with these types of situations. But the educational apparatus has been completely captured.
Hijacked, exactly.
By the people that are perpetuating this ideological line.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is absolutely crazy. And then, as both you and I think it's a spiritual problem, and there needs to be a revival that begins in the pulpits of this country. And I just don't see it happening. They're more concerned about raising money and building buildings. And for goodness sakes, we can't say anything that offends anybody in the congregation. Otherwise, they may stop giving money.
Yeah, that's basically what's happened, James. That's exactly what's happened, and it's that's the most despicable part of this, are the spiritual voices that are perpetuating it. Related story that I want to run by you. Mike Huckabee demanded yesterday, Sunday night actually, he demanded the apology from CNN, Washington Post, Associated Press, BBC, that they had posted this story that Israel was shooting at Palestinians at a U.S. aid center for food, and come to find out it was completely false. The source that they got that story from was the Hamas health minister, which has done nothing but promote falsehoods. And then on top of that, Huckabee pointed out that there had been 5 million meals served from that aid center to the Gazan people, given to the Gazans, but the Hamas people have basically been hijacking the food. And this is the other despicable thing, all the blood libel, James, because a lot of these lies that are getting pushed out there by the media, it causes people to think Israel's committing a genocide, and it's sort of what you just sort of hinted at. People feel justified in doing this stuff when they hear that Israel's evil and this blood libel that's going on, and they hear these lies and they believe them, and the media is not going to apologize. Look, CNN had a chance today to go out there and say, hey, we got this wrong. They doubled down today. They literally doubled down. They didn't apologize. They didn't tell Huckabee, no, you're right, we're wrong. No, they went out there and said it again. So did AP.
Yeah.
So the media don't care what blood they have on their hands as long as it's Jewish blood. Because the people that believe this, they believe that Israel's literally committing a genocide in Gaza and starving people to death. And I want to just say this, and I'll give it to you. Look, I appreciate what President Trump has done in trying to get food over there, but I think Bibi Netanyahu deserves a little bit of credit too. And the world sits by and acts like he's this evil dictator that is starving people to death. It's been Bibi's government that has fed the very enemy, James, that's wanted to kill him. They've showed nothing but grace to these people in Gaza. And a lot of these civilians were basically helping Hamas do the atrocities of October the 7th when they butchered 1,200 people.
No, we see alike on that. There's just no excuse for it, and the mainstream media will get maximum mileage out of these stories, out of peddling these outright lies in many cases. And they never, the reversal or retraction will be seen 3 weeks later on page 27. I heard somebody say tonight, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
The damage is done with front page stories, and then it's always a lie. And then the retraction doesn't come till 2 weeks later on page 27. It's just insane, and I hope that the American people are just starting to see through this sort of stuff, and the confidence figures and the trust level in the mainstream media just keeps going down and down and down, and it's for reasons just like this, stories just like this.
Totally agree, bro. I totally agree with you. Is there anything that can be done to the media to stop this? It's sort of a fine line you walk between freedom of the press and printing blood libel. I mean, it's a worldwide media. It's not just America's media that does it. It's BBC was in on this. I'm sure a lot of these Eurovision newspapers and networks were in on it. But what ultimately can be done, because it's causing a lot of harm to a group of people. And I'll just say this, Huckabee, and I give him some credit for it because it took a lot of courage to say this, but he literally sort of hinted in his response to these newspapers that they had blood on their hands from Colorado Sunday night, because the attack in Colorado took place just hours after that article came out accusing Israel of shooting Palestinians. And, I mean, no one knows exactly what drove this mad psycho to do what he did, blowtorching people. But I tell you what, the timing sure was not called off coincidence to me. It was just a few hours after this article.
Yeah, the real interesting question is what can be done, and are there historical examples of where bold actions by political actors or whomever have been able to turn around a media that has become jaundiced?
Yes.
And those are very few and far between, and the hope lies in just the sort of thing that we saw in November, where someone that had been repeatedly vilified by the media had been castigated. They did everything they could to ruin the man, turns out to win an election, and the media has yet to be able to cope with the reality of that, and so there are developments that are taking place. The media has definitely shot themselves in the foot. They don't have the confidence they used to have with the American people, a couple decades ago, and so they're falling on their own swords because most of the major newspaper syndicates in the country are on the verge of going broke, or they have to sell their souls to a big daddy financier, and so the media will have no reason to complain. They've absolutely done it to themselves.
They've done it to themselves, James. They have, without a doubt.
And in 5 years, the media landscape, I think, is going to be completely turned upside down. And nobody's going to read or very few will read a newspaper. Very few. When is the last time you watched on TV one of the major networks' news shows in the evening? I mean,
no, not ever. Not ever.
When I was a kid, it was Walter Cronkite or Huntley Brinkley or whatever, because those people were giving you facts. They weren't giving you spin narrative. And now,
so well said,
all that you get when you watch TV is spin narrative with these major networks, and they are all suffering for it. And so part of the answer to that question is just by virtue of them not telling the truth, it's going to take a toll on their very existence. And in 5 years, we're going to see a completely different media landscape.
I was on the Kevin Gallagher show today, and we talked about this, and we were basically discussing how the alternative media has exploded onto the scene of America, and people are turning off ABC, CBS, NBC, all these networks for this very reason, because they would rather go to a smaller podcast than listen to the news, because they believe somebody like this show quicker than they would believe anybody, because we don't have an agenda here. We don't have sponsors over us telling us what to do and money flowing through here. We can say what we want to say, and a podcast that's worth its salt is going to keep people grounded in the truth. And those are, important right now. And I think I totally agree with you. I do agree with you that it was a time that the only three networks you had was ABC, CBS, and NBC. That's where you got your news every night from 6 to 7. And people have turned that off a long time ago. I mean, they have turned those off a long time ago, and I don't know if they're ever coming back. But very, very interesting stuff. Buddy, real quick, your thoughts on the Russia-Ukraine situation? Looked like they had met in Istanbul to get a peace treaty together, and of course Ukraine deep sixed the Russians, and this attack. Do you see that these two partners, do they even care about peace at all, or do you think that we're going to be just seeing this perpetual war until they kill each other?
Well, it doesn't look like they're even moving an inch closer to any sort of agreement. But let me talk about an incident that happened this weekend that may totally change the nature of warfare and poses a tremendous danger to the United States. The Ukraine, in a long planned operation, took camouflage trucks and drove them deep into Russia with drones on them.
Yes. And
at the same moment, they piggybacked on the Russian telephone network, and they simultaneously launched drones that hit 40-some different targets deep into Siberia. It was absolutely an extraordinary strike, that people are going to be studying for a long time. I don't think I didn't read about it much of any place today. You're starting to get dribs and drabs that are appearing in magazines and the like now. But it was extraordinary. If you follow me on this, if you posit the millions of people that have come into this country and across the border, and if and it's a big if, and if they have some sort of similar plan, you know, on with the Iranian mullahs, you know, triggering and pressing the go button on it, you know, we could have the same thing buried deep in this country, a combined program that operates right under our noses, and the Russians were watching for it. We're not. Operate right under our nose and hit multiple strategic targets in this country that could cripple this country. That successful operation that the Ukrainians pulled off, they did it partly with the aid of Western intelligence, I grant you, but it will be studied for years. But I'm suggesting that this country, and the way we have just so reduced the number of military bases. You know, they used to be spread all over the country. Now they're sort of, in the name of pure economics, they've been clustered in these various points in the United States. And I'm telling you, Chris, as a country, we are vulnerable to this sort of thing, or a variation of this sort of thing. We still don't know what happened to hundreds of thousands of military-aged Chinese young men that came flooding across the border into this country.
Come on.
And you know, and there may be a day when we wake up and you know, basically every military base in this country has been attacked by drones with a combination of cyber. Up here, one of the biggest medical organizations, and I am a part of it, was cyber attacked, ransom, and demanded a ransom from them, and it completely shut down one of the major medical networks in this part of Ohio, and I'm telling you, we're going to wake up. All this stuff happens on Friday when everybody inside the Beltway goes home.
Isn't that weird?
And it's going to be a Friday evening, and you know, if it happens, I regret that it happens, but I can see it coming. All the banks, you know, there's going to be a massive cyber attack on this country, and it may be combined with these hidden elements in our country being able to launch strikes just like the Ukrainians did in Russia. I'm telling you, that was a wake-up call, I hope, for the United States, what happened there. I mean, kudos to the Ukrainians for pulling it off. You know, they are calling it the drone equivalent to what the Israelis did
with the pagers. Yeah, with the pagers.
With the pagers.
Yeah.
You know, it is that sort of surprise. The Russians completely caught by surprise, and it was a massive attack on 40-some Russian military installations. You know, I hope there's a wake-up call in Washington, D.C. that this very thing could happen to us, given the situation we were placed in during the Biden administration when millions of people flooded across those borders, and we have no clue where the most of them are.
Got a question for you, and we'll take a question or two tonight, but I do have one from last night that I want to run by you. And it was an excellent question, even though there's probably no proof of this. I know there was a lot of talk, scuttlebutt about it on the Twitter pages. Have you heard is there any truth that the Russians claimed that they were pointing their missiles, that they had basically threatened nuclear war over this? Or is that just sort of some of the fog of war stuff and rhetoric that gets out there? I heard the question last night was they had heard that the Russians told our government, and they had announced that they had pointed these missiles at some of the bigger cities in Europe and some bigger cities in America. Do you know that there's any truth to that, or do you think that's just blather?
I have not seen those reports or anything that would make me think that they are anything other than typical Russian saber rattling.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And James, I wonder what benefits Putin and what benefits Zelensky from carrying this war on. They're killing each other. And look, I have no love lost for Vladimir Putin. I have less love lost for Zelensky. I have no respect for either nation because I think they're both culpable.
One is a thug turned clown, and the other one is a clown turned thug.
And so it's perfectly said. No, that's perfectly said. That is perfectly said, and that's who we're dealing with. And at some point, I think that Trump's going to have to just wash his hands of it and, pray to God this don't turn into a greater regional conflict. And but it seems to me that there has to be a reason, because they just can't sit here and believe that either one of them is going to win this war. I mean, it's been going on for 2.5 years now, with no end in sight. Trump's at least tried to stop it, but he's not been successful at it. And I read a report tonight, I'll let this be your final question, that Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, or maybe North Korea won, but I know for sure it was the nations were Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, and I want to say Iran. They are talking about forming a coalition of nations to stop Western aggression into the hemisphere, basically targeting America. And I was reading a report where China has made a dig for Cuba, that they have all of a sudden started trying to put a lot of weapons and a lot of things to hinder America in Cuba again. And James, it's almost like we're in a time warp, man. This feels like we're going back to 1963 and the Cuban Missile Crisis with Kennedy, man. I tell you, these communists, they love to put weapons in Cuba, don't they?
Yeah, the only thing missing is Chinese President Xi coming to the UN and pounding his shoe on the desk.
Yeah, that's about what happened. With that.
So, I mean, the more things change, the more they seem to stay the same. But there's definitely a coalition of bad actors out there. The Europeans are coalescing around the idea that the bad actor in the world is Trump, and meanwhile, China, Russia, and Iran continue to make hay off of all of that. I mean, in Cuba, they now have, there's so much popular discontent with the regime in Cuba that the people are taking to the streets, and it's become an extremely repressive regime even after Fidel Castro left the scene. And in Iran, you have the same thing. They have a ton of street discontent that they have to deal with, and so all of this unrest in these countries have seemed and China as well. There's been labor unrest, one incident after another in China, and so not all is well in China.
No,
So
no,
you
yeah.
Everywhere you look around the world, the common denominator is that there's a spirit of lawlessness. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the liberal democracies, the so-called liberal democracies, or you're talking about the authoritarian government. There is an element of lawlessness, and Paul writes about it and said it'll be a characteristic of the end times, that there'll just be this just sense. I mean, if you walk on the streets and talk to people, I mean, people are just dissatisfied, and sometimes they don't even know why they're dissatisfied.
Well,
And then,
mhm.
so all of that feeds into this, what I'm calling the spirit of lawlessness, which is a worldwide phenomenon, not isolated here.
Well, I will tell you this, James, what you just described is what Europe did with Hitler. They thought Chamberlain was the enemy. They thought Chamberlain was trying to be the bad guy and be the killjoy of peace, when Chamberlain was warning them years before Hitler ever took power that Hitler was building those weapons up. And Neville Chamberlain, you know, his party in Britain isolated Churchill to the point that he almost lost his voice in Congress or Parliament. And come to find out, Churchill was right, and Chamberlain made a deal with the devil that ultimately led to the Second World War, when you get down to it. And I see the same thing happening tonight. You nailed it just then. The world looks at Trump as the devil. And they look at these mullahs, and they look at these leaders of Europe, and they look at this illegal invasion and mass migration as being right. And when you start calling evil good and good evil, there's only one word for that, brother, and that's woe. That is a woe. And I think that we're in that time. Well, listen, but it's always good to get your insight on things, and I'm going to let you go. We'll get you back on soon. And if the world ends tomorrow, it may be sooner. The way this world is, we never do get up every morning. We never know what we're going to wake up to in the morning when we turn a television on these days. So it may be sooner than you may think. So,
well, Chris, it is always a pleasure to talk to you and talk to your audience, and I'm always honored that you even count my ideas worthy of listening to, and you know, it's a crazy world, but there is a solution to it all, and that is to give your complete heart and mind over to the Lord Jesus Christ, and you don't have to suffer with fear in these final days. And you talk about a contagion that is coming. It is going to be fear-induced, everything, disease, everything else, and so, you know, all of that stuff's getting ready to happen, but put your trust in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Before I let you go, one quick question. Jenny Castellanova, I know you probably heard that Lindsey Graham went over to Ukraine. What is Lindsey Graham doing in Ukraine? What does he think he's going to accomplish over there? Does that not undermine our president a little bit?
Well, you know, I mean, Lindsey Graham just sort of marches to a different drumbeat in his personal life and in his, you know, political life.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, you just don't know what his motive is. I mean, you know, he'll take a trip occasionally to the Middle East, and you know, you just don't know what's going to come out of it. He presents himself as a senator that has the blessing of the White House and everything that he does, and quite honestly, he doesn't. He's an independent actor over there, you know, and so he's doing the same. It is the Lindsey Graham roadshow again in the Ukraine.
I know we've been talking international issue. One quick domestic thought. What was your thoughts today about Elon sort of throwing Trump under the bus with this big beautiful bill thing? Elon he's no fan of the big B. He's no fan of the BBB.
No, he's not. And there's some sort of logic to it. Here he's the head doge to cut excessive government spending and waste and fraud in the system, and then you go around and pass a bill where tons of money are being thrown at the same problems again, and so in this respect, I think Musk is pretty consistent. He's an entrepreneur, but he has to run his companies according to a budget.
I'll agree.
That's the way he makes his money. And if you and I ran our personal finances the way the government runs its personal finances, we would be in jail. We'd be
in bankruptcy, brother, and we'd be in jail.
And
exactly.
Here we go. My personal viewpoint, and I could be wrong, but this was a unique opportunity for us to say no to all of these troughs that the pigs eat at in Washington, D.C. It was an opportunity for the GOP to say, no, we have to live within our means. And they could not summon the political wherewithal to do it. And it's not me. I mean, I'm sort of at the end of my days. But my grandchildren, we are putting them in a fiscal hole they will never
come out,
ever dig out of. And it's because congressmen in Washington, D.C. cannot summon the courage to conduct a budget the way they expect every American family to conduct their own budget.
Totally agree. And, the way I look at the tax cut could be separated out of this bill. In other words, they could do the tax cut separately and deal with this other reconciliation and all these other Doge issues in a separate bill. I think that's the only, it's not a criticism, but it's just a suggestion to President Trump is instead of trying to make it all one big bill, do it in pieces and reconcile each bill individually. And I think that he would be much better served to do that. But again, that's just Chris's 2 cents, and that's why me and you are doing a podcast tonight, and President Trump's president, because he's got they pay him the big bucks to figure those things out, right?
Yeah, but I couldn't agree with you more. This has been a crisis point for the leader of the Republican Party for as long as I can remember, certainly in recent history, is that the Democrats would crowd everything into one big bill,
right? And
then say, if you don't pass this huge bill, grandparents are going to lose their money. They're going to be eating dog food. There's going to be all these catastrophes that happen. So you got to pass all these port add-ons to legislation in one big bill rather than separating it out and passing one item at a time, which would be the fiscally responsible thing to do.
It's elementary, Watson. It's elementary. You could go fix it if they put us in charge, Akers. We'd get this crap fixed in about a week. It'll only take me and you a week to get it done. I'm sure. But, hey, buddy, thank you for being with me tonight, and may the Lord bless you, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend. We appreciate you much.
Okay. It's always a pleasure, Chris. Anytime.
You too, brother. Till next time. Jeemes Akers, everybody. Good night, Jeemes. Jeemes
Good night.
Akers, thanks so much for him being with us tonight. Good stuff. We're actually not going to keep you long tonight. We're getting ready for a conference this weekend in Long Island, and if you've got any other questions, and we're going to take about another 5-10 minutes and wrap it up. I don't really have a lot of video tonight. I was going to I do want to show you one thing, and this is something that we were talking about last night. And if you don't believe they're trying to indoctrinate your kids, folks, that is and I'm not even sure where those kids are from. This guy Steve who tweeted it out, he's promoting Pride Month, but I thought the picture speaks for itself, that they are literally dressing our kids up in this stuff, and that's probably an elementary school. That's an elementary school somewhere in this country. And I did hear this today that Target, I think, has found Jesus. And I actually may darken the door of their store, maybe. But they are, instead of Pride shirts and Pride material, they're going to be doing the patriotic thing this year and selling America shirts and America-themed shirts and hats and socks and flags and America. And it was announced today that they have trashed the DEI hiring policies at Target. It's amazing. It's amazing when people see Jesus and come to Jesus, what happens to their outlook and what they do. Target's making the right move because they were going bankrupt doing the other. Because the Christian community stopped shopping. I hadn't been to Target in years. And to be frank with you, something would have froze over. I'd have been 6 feet under before I ever planned to darken the door of it again. And I'm not saying I'm going to. I said I'll think about it. But I do, and I'm glad that they've seen the light. And they need to. Kohl's need to see the light. Kohl's is still pushing transgender clothes in its stores and with pedophile symbols all over it. I'd never darken the door of a Kohl's department store ever again. So I hope Target did get the message, and I think they did. At least that's how it seems tonight. That's how it seems tonight. As I told you, we are understanding that this monster that did this horrific crime Sunday night, and I'm praying for the man's soul, folks. This man needs Jesus. That his family is going to be deported tonight because they evidently are here illegal too, both his child and his wife. And they're going to be deported. He's going to be facing attempted murder charges. See, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. And but it just keeps getting weirder by the minute. And I want to say there was one other thing I wanted to share with you tonight, and then we'll take a few questions and we'll be done with it. This is, well, I tell you what, we'll save this for Thursday night. But I mentioned Benny Johnson yesterday. I do want to play you one video. This is Benny Johnson with Corey Lewandowski. The reason that this Egyptian was here partly is because he came in and he should have been on a terror watch list, but he wasn't. And Corey Lewandowski last night told Benny that there were forces in the Biden administration that were paying money to the administration to keep certain names off the terror watch list. Now, I don't know if this guy was one of those. I don't know. But I want you to listen to this about 2 minutes, then we'll wrap this up. If you got a question for tonight, put it in the house.
Really quickly, do you think that Mohammed should be facing civil rights charges on a federal level, should face potentially capital punishment on a federal level for this? I mean, we don't have any faith in Colorado working here. Tina Peters, of course, is still in jail in Colorado. Tina Peters will get a more severe sentence than Mohammed, we assume. But do you think that there's federal charges that can be brought here, Corey?
I think so. And from what I've heard, the Department of Justice is pursuing attempted murder or murder charges in 8 different cases. Now, no one has actually died yet, but is one of the pieces that they are pursuing. Look, you have to make an example of these people. And Benny, listen, I'm a guy, and I know, someone asked me, what's your favorite Bible verse? Mine is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Listen, whatever this guy did, maybe the only recourse is you do it back to him. This guy literally created a Molotov cocktail and threw it at people to light them on fire to kill them. It is a brutal, I can only imagine it'd be a brutal way to die, to be burned to death or to have to live with those burns. If anyone's ever been to Shriners or any of these other places that these people are impacted by fire, it's just a devastating thing to somebody. This guy should be held to the fullest extent of the law. And I'll tell you what, we don't have a CCOT here, a prison like they do in El Salvador, but there's a special place in hell for a person like this.
Yeah, rightly so. What about finally, Corey here? What about the people that allowed this? Because Joe Biden and his team rubber stamped his visa, his work permit after overstaying his visa, after being here criminally. They wanted Mohammed, the terrorist, in the country to commit a flamethrower act of terrorism. What should befall that administration, either morally or legally?
Well, what is the accountability that we have for these people, right? I mean, look, when you go back and look at what Alejandro Mayorkas allowed to have happen, he lied to Congress and said he had no authority to prevent the border from being secured. What we will know and what your listeners and viewers will see here in just a couple of days, Benny, is the individuals that the Biden administration actually kept off the known suspected terror list, which was amazing, right? They were pressured to keep certain individuals who should have been placed on that list off of the list for political realities.
And not only political realities, but financial realities. There's rumors that this was done for money. But folks, what he's saying, that this guy should have been on a terror list that maybe would have prevented him from coming into the country to do this. You heard Jeemes tonight, folks. There's going to be several tens of thousands of Chinese nationals, several tens of thousands. If we've got 12 million people, to say we got 100,000 Chinese nationals in the country is not a stretch. To say we've got 20, 30,000 Iranians is not a stretch. We don't even know who and what nationalities here. This is a big story. The media is not talking about it. I give Benny a little heads up and a tip of the hat for getting Corey on record, because Corey would know. He works closely with Trump. Even though he's not in the Trump administration, but he is inside the Beltway there. This is going to be a huge bomb going off in the next few days. And if they knew, if they're keeping people off this terror watch list, who else have they kept off that list that may be plotting the overthrow and the destruction of the United States of America? About a minute left.
And that is devastating to me. So that's going to come here in the very near future. The fact that political expedience allowed them, for people who should have been placed on the list, to be kept off the list. And clearly a guy like this, who should have been on those, who never should have been let into the country, they just turned their cheek. They turned a blind eye to him. They let these criminals pour into our country to continue to perpetrate crimes against Americans with zero legal resource. Listen, I was part of that team, the fake Russian narrative that had to testify 7 times in front of Congress, that was held accountable, that I never did anything wrong. When do these people be held accountable? When are they dragged before Congress to say, you are now personally liable for the things that you did while you were in government service, because you allowed these crimes to, if not actually happen, you allowed the people to come into this country because you didn't follow the rules?
That's some bombshell stuff, Corey. I have to ask a follow-up. So you're saying that Alejandro Mayorkas hid the identities of terrorists that were entering the country? This seems like a massive crime.
Benny, I will tell you this, that in the next 48 hours, you will see a story, hopefully, that is going to come out. That is going to show that there were people who should have been placed on the known suspected terror list that were not placed on that list because of political pressure directly to the department that was signed off by the highest levels of government. It's stunning information to me that is just coming to us that goes to show you how broken the federal government system was under Biden and the fake auto pen and Alejandro Mayorkas and the entire administration, who covered up people coming into this country or should have been watched and weren't, because they had the political resources and the knowledge to go and talk to the right person. It's disgusting to me, and that's part of the reason our country's in such a mess. Luckily, we've got Donald Trump and his team coming in and fixing these things.
Let's hope. Let's hope. We do have Donald Trump. We do hope that they will fix these things, because, folks, we're about to turn into London. We got a story that we're going to share with you Thursday night. It'll be late. We'll be on the road headed to Long Island, but we'll have a show on remote, do a new show from somewhere, and if we feel up to it, I'll leave it at that. But we are going to be talking tomorrow on the radio show about a Britain man that has been basically charged under Sharia law for burning a Quran. and London has fallen. There's a movie called London Has Fallen. London's gone. UK is gone. They have been given over to this spirit that James talked about tonight, and that is coming to the United States of America, folks, if we don't become diligent and fight for our rights and make sure our congressmen are aware of what's going on. But it's like I'm watching. It's almost like a surreal movie. It's like you're watching something. You can't really believe you're hearing it. You can't believe you're seeing it. You can't believe that the headlines are what they are, but they are. So we'll leave it at that. But listen, I want to say thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to let you go. It's been a long day here, and I'm going to say goodnight now. If you got a question or two, still, we'll take a few before we leave. But we got a lot to cover. We'll be on the radio at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Carol Smith says, my main news source is the McFiles, not the Alphabet Media. Stopped watching years ago. Thank you, Carol. Now, the Great Hinge, I couldn't tell if this was a compliment or something. He says, the McFiles never lets me down for a good night's sleep. Excuse me. It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. A good night's sleep, well, if we're that boring, I guess you can find a better podcast somewhere else. I don't think we're too boring around here, but it does give me a good night's sleep because I love what I do. I love what I do. Did you enjoy Jeemes Akers tonight? If you did, put some fire in that house. And we're grateful that you've been with us over on Facebook. Thank you all for being with us there tonight on X, and we were on Rumble tonight. And now our schedule this week is pretty cut and dry. And Corey, people do need to be indicted. People do need to be indicted. And John, your question, why would our administration want criminals to come here? Our administration don't. That Corey Lewandowski's talking about was happening in the Biden administration under Mayorkas. And he said that in a few days we're going to find out some stuff. I don't doubt that, and we'll follow it. I just think that every day that we wake up, we're going to have more revelation and more things that are going to basically be revealed. We're in a dangerous, troublesome, demonic, prophetic time. And, I said it on the Kevin Gallagher show today that we need sober-minded people. We need some soberly minded people in these times. Dangerous times and troublesome times require people that are serious and people that are sober-minded. And it's something that's at a premium in this country tonight. I just pray that you that are listening to us and here on this network, that we try our best to keep you sober-minded, keep you grounded, keep you off a cliff. But we are in a dangerous time, folks, and if it is proven that these people were let in for money or they were let in for deals behind the scenes, somebody, I'm with Corey Aguilar 1,000,000%, they need to be indicted. That's criminal. It's treason. It's absolute treason. And then that, by extension, all these deaths that have occurred, those two precious kids that died Wednesday night, makes you wonder, when they get down to who the man was he supposed to be here? This man, Sunday night, shouldn't have been here. His wife shouldn't have been here. His kids shouldn't have been here. But they were here. Why are they here? Why were they here? Those are questions that need to be answered. And those questions need to be answered. So great to have everybody tonight. And again, we've got a lot to talk about tomorrow. And Richard, we always have Faith Show on Wednesday night. Yes, we will be here. We're not leaving until Thursday afternoon to head to New York. But I do hope that you in the Northeast can join us at the Long Island event, 116 Milligan Road. That's in Long Island. It's really West Babylon is where it's at. West Babylon, New York. It's on Long Island. We pray that you can come be with us. It's supposed to rain Saturday, but the temperatures will be pleasant. Don't let the rain keep you away. It's not going to be too bad. And it's scattered. It won't be an all-day event, so all-day showers at least. But please come be with us, and there won't be a better place to be inside since it's raining. You ain't gonna be able to do nothing outside anyway. So come be with us and get some spiritual food and get some physical food and get some fellowship and have some folks pray with you and pray over you and love on you. And then we'll have church Sunday morning there at Dory's house. And we hope that you all can join us this weekend. I'm looking forward to being with you tomorrow morning on our Face Show, tomorrow afternoon on the radio network, and then tomorrow night, yes, Richard, at 8 o'clock. No Face Chat tomorrow night, but we will have a Wednesday night midweek fellowship talking about the church at Laodicea. And then Thursday, we'll have a regular Face Show. We'll have a Bible study in the morning on Thursday and a radio. We'll have to record the radio show Thursday, but we'll be on the road this week, and we'll see y'all in New England over the weekend, and we're back to normal. Hopefully by Tuesday of next week, things will be back to normal for a while. And we're grateful that you've been with us tonight. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. We love you guys. Thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you, Jeemes Akers, and thank you all for making Tuesday night part of the McFiles audience. And may the Lord bless you all. Have a good one. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Faith Day Wednesday. But join me on the radio at 2 o'clock. We're going to talk about this Koran burning in England. It's coming here, folks. It's coming here. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed.